Hey, good morning. Man, I was having a conversation with a guy I work with, and that's what inspired this video. I thought everybody knew this, but evidently not. And what I'm getting ready to say is that, so me and him were talking about real estate. He just bought a nice house, and his house, it's really nice. He's 28 years old. His house, he bought like a $500,000 home. It's really nice location, the whole wop, real Edward Scissorhands neighborhood type stuff, yards are manicured, HOA type crap, it's nice. And I was not knocking him at all, but in the conversation about him buying the house, he said, well, it's an asset. I thought everybody knew this, but I guess not. Your house is not an asset. Your house is a liability. If you do not rent it, if it does not provide you rental income, it is not an asset. It is a liability. Assets give you money. Liabilities take money. Your car is a liability. The only way your car is an asset is if you're an Uber driver or something like that, where that car brings you money. But other than that, your car is a liability because it breaks down, it takes gas, takes insurance, so on and so on, and your house does the same thing. It gets old, it gets crappy, it gets torn up, you got to repair the roof, water leaks, so on and so on. That is not an asset, that is a liability because anything can go wrong and you have to pay for it. So before you buy a home, you need to really decide, again, like I always tell people, to decide what you want your life to look like. Because when you buy a home, if you're not buying it for income producing purposes, like real estate, not real estate or real estate, but like rental property, then there's no real reason to buy a home because you're going to be locked into a 30-year or even now a 50-year mortgage. And in the future, you're going to see this also turn into a 100-year mortgage in the future. So you need to know the history of housing. So we go back to Great Depression, World War II. Nobody wanted to invest in the stock market. Nobody wanted to borrow money from the banks. They didn't believe in them. They didn't trust them. People just were not fooling with it. Before they started putting regulations on how people could live, laws and regulations on how people could live, people lived wherever they wanted to. You lived in shacks, you lived in shanties, you lived here, you lived there. Nobody could say anything about it. You just lived. You were basically what we would consider homeless, was just people living. That was just it. That was just them living. They lived in the back of wagons and carriages and so on and so on. You guys have all seen these movies and shows. So after the Great Depression, World War II, nobody wanted to invest in the housing market. Nobody trusted the banks. So the banks needed a reason to loan people money because people did not want to borrow money. People did not want to invest in the stock market for businesses to grow. The banks needed a reason. So that reason was housing. They started placing laws and regulations on housing that almost forced people into it, but they made it sexy. They made it sexy because in the 50s, they called it the American dream. So we're talking, this is 1947 roughly that all this is going on. And by 1950, they're slinging the American dream to people. Have a piece of the American dream, real Leave It to Beaver type stuff, white picket fence, little house, Brady Bunch shit, have a piece of the American dream, invest in housing. The banks will loan you this, and that's how your grandparents were able to get houses, pennies on the dollar. That's how those people were able to buy housing. They thought they were doing the right thing. They thought, which at that time they probably were. But they didn't know what we know now. They didn't know that you were being scammed into a 30-year mortgage, a 30-year loan. They didn't know those things. But, now that they sell out, they're making money. So that was a great investment for them at that time. Well, that system is broken. That system no longer works or applies to today. Because you can go buy a $500,000 home today, and what do you think in 30 years? It probably will be worth $1 million in 30 years, but who's going to buy it? Who's going to be able to afford it? Who can really afford a $500,000 home now? People can, and people are, by the skin of their teeth affording these things. I go and I deal with rich people all day long. The field I'm in more of the electric and gas type field. And so I go to people's homes all day long, and I see these people. I see these people, I see their houses, I see all the toys they have in their garage, and man, they have nothing but that. That's what they have. They have houses and toys. They have no freedom. They have no freedom. To me, freedom is the most important thing. And they don't have that because they're locked into a 30-year mortgage with a HOA up their ass, and they can't go or do anything, so they have to work just to pay for this house. That is not life. That is not living. So before you go buy a home, or you feel like you are failing because you cannot own a home, I personally am going to tell you to stay away from it. I'm going to tell you to go rent luxury and have a pool and a gym and just pay that, $1,500, $2,000 a month rent. Just pay that and you have no worries. Go rent luxury. You get the computer lab, the Wi-Fi, the whatever you need. You get the gym, the pool, the dog park. I mean, you get everything you need right there instead of going and buying a $2,000 mortgage for 30 years and you can't leave or go anywhere. Rent luxury or rent what you can afford and enjoy it. Don't go renting just insane or go buying just insane properties that you can't afford. Don't sit down and feel like you're behind because you don't own a home. There's nothing positive. I'm gonna be honest with you. The only way owning a home is positive is if you know that's where you want to be. If it's your forever. If you're not gonna rent it out and turn it into an income producing property, then it needs to be your forever home. Like, hey, I'm 40 years old and I'm never gonna move again. This is it. This is my Alamo. This is where I'm gonna die. Buy the home. By all means, buy the home because now it is an investment. It's an investment for your kids, your family, so on and so on. It builds equity. It shows the banks you're even more responsible than a lot of people, so on, so on, and so on. You always have something you can borrow against. If you guys want me to talk about that, let me know below, whatever you guys want to talk about. But having a home is not an asset. It can be an investment depending on how you look at it or how you're using it. But it is more of a liability than it is anything else. So don't feel bad because you do not own a home. Don't feel bad because don't try to keep up with the Joneses, man. That's garbage. I'm telling y'all, buying a home is not what it's cracked up to be. If that's what you want to do and it's your forever place, then by all means go for it. But if you're just trying to buy one because society tells you to buy one, then please remember what I said. It was created by the banks in the 1950s and they called it the American dream. That's how they advertised it because they needed people to borrow money. They needed people to borrow money to push back into the stock market. Because like I've told you in videos before, money is a currency. It's a current. It has to keep moving. If money does not move, it sets stagnant. When things set stagnant, they get old and scummy. Money is a currency. That's why they call it currency. It is for transactional purposes only. It has to keep moving. If it does not move, it is no good. So therefore, they wanted you to give your currency to the banks. They want you to flow your money to the banks so they can put that money somewhere else. So your money now is stagnant in a home. You understand? Your home is a pond that has no flow to it and is getting scummy. It's growing all that green shit around it. Hence why you get green shit all over your house and got to clean it off every few years. That's what they've done. So you're no longer in a currency playing environment. Your money is no longer a river. It is only flowing to one thing, your house. I hope I'm making sense. If you guys got any questions, ask me in the comments below. Feel free to reach out to me about anything money, business related. I love to try and explain these things to people in different ways so everybody can understand, because I know that everybody understands in their own way, in different ways. So I try to break it down to the simplest form. And I hope that I'm doing a good enough job by, providing you guys with these analogies of rivers and ponds and so on and so on. But again, do not feel bad if you do not own a home. Do not feel behind if you do not own a home. That is not really the goal of 2024 and beyond America. So if you guys want to talk about anything, you want to talk about this new and upcoming election, anything, reach out to me. I'm more than happy to tell you my thoughts, and I will give you the most educated answer that I possibly can on those subjects. Anyways, man, I'm going to quit rambling. You guys have a good day, all right?